Right, it's 2:26. You're watching and listening to Good Afternoon Britain. Now, King Charles has returned to public duties today. He's visited a cancer treatment centre in south of England. The King, along with the Queen Camilla, met patients and medical specialists to raise awareness of the importance of early diagnosis and highlight research taking place at the hospital. There they are, looking at what looks like an MRI machine.
Yes, one of the few MRI machines that we have in the country. But this comes after...
How many are there?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know that we haven't got enough.
Yeah.
But this comes after the King's own diagnosis of the disease back in February. Well, Cameron Walker is here to tell us more from the scene of the visit. And Cameron, this was the first time that we'd seen the King in quite a while.
Yeah, it certainly was, Tom. It was a hugely symbolic visit following the positive effects of his own cancer treatment. And when he stood outside of the Royal Bentley with Queen Camilla here, he genuinely was so happy to be here. You could just tell he was engaging with members of the public, even engaging with a few familiar journalists as well before he met the hospital bosses and then stood inside, because the King, I'm told, was really keen to highlight the importance of early diagnosis when it comes to cancers. You mentioned the CT scanner there, Tom, a vital part of early diagnosis of cancer treatments, but he also opened up about his own experience with cancer, even telling one chemotherapy patient here that he has to have more treatment this afternoon. So as we speak, the King, it appears, is having more treatments for that cancer. He also met a couple of young patients here. When he left the hospital, he met two young patients, and the King gifted a little boy some merchandise from the Buckingham Palace shop. A little girl, some merchandise from the Buckingham Palace shop, including a cuddly toy dog and a notebook. A little girl also received some books from Her Majesty the Queen. Of course, she is very keen on literacy, and those books recommended by the Queen's reading room. But the King here was also really wanting to encourage others to be open about their own cancer diagnosis and to kind of show the world that, OK, he still has cancer, but he can still work, and showing to other cancer patients that perhaps if there is doctor's advice, they can still have as normal life as possible as they're undergoing this treatment. But of course, it is all subject to doctor's advice. And just in the back of your mind, think that the Princess of Wales is still undergoing preventative chemotherapy for her own cancer diagnosis. But this was the first time we saw the King back on public engagement since his diagnosis back in February. It's understood that plans are still very much in the works for him to carry out more public engagements as we get into those summer months. Of course, both cancer and the treatments can have a big effect on immunity, and the King has been advised over the last few months to avoid large crowds. But as we get better weather, more engagements can be held outside, and therefore the King perhaps will be well enough to attend. But of course, it's all subject to doctor's advice. As I've been saying, we've got Trooping the Colour, we've got the D-Day 80th celebrations, we've got reportedly an Australia tour in the autumn as well. All of that is not ruled out, but it is going to be very much if the King is well enough to attend. But we do know the King's been very frustrated over the last few months not being able to carry out those public engagements, and it appears as we get towards the summer, he's incredibly optimistic that he'll be able to do much more, especially with Queen Camilla supporting him all the way.
Absolutely, and when that statement was released by the royal family saying he would be back to official duty soon, I for one wasn't expecting it to be so soon. But Cameron, I must ask, Prince Harry is back in town next week. Will there be a reunion between him and his dad?
Well, we know for sure there's not going to be a reunion between Meghan and his dad, the King, because royal sources have told me that Meghan is staying in California, in Montecito, and will not be accompanying Prince Harry to the 10th anniversary service of the Invictus Games that's being held at St Paul's Cathedral on Wednesday. Will the King and Prince Harry share a moment? Unconfirmed. They tend to keep very private about those family moments. If he's going to reconcile with anybody, though, it is going to be his father, the King. I suspect that Prince Harry and Prince William will not be meeting when he's in the country next week. But of course, I suspect it's also only going to be a very fleeting visit, like it was back in February when Prince Harry flew across the Atlantic following the King's cancer diagnosis. And then Harry's going to be very busy flying to Nigeria with Meghan for this kind of unofficial royal tour that they appear to be doing, although details are a bit sketchy of that one.
Well, thank you very much indeed for bringing us the very latest. Cameron Walker, our royal correspondent, outside the hospital there, the treatment centre where King Charles was. Go on.
I should say that Cameron absolutely corrected us. Not an MRI machine, a CT scanner. CT scanners take lots of X-rays. MRI machines use fancy magnetic fields and a lot bigger things. But I did say I would get the numbers for you.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, OK, go on then.
OK, the NHS has 6.1 MRI machines per million people. Now, that is on par with countries like Estonia and Slovenia.
Oh.
The US has 38.1 per million people. The UK has 6.1. The US has 38.1. That shows the scale of difference per million people in terms of number of MRI machines.
Yes, it would be quite useful if we had more.
It would
See, don't ever tell me I don't allow you to shine. Look at you there with your stats.
Look, oh yeah, I didn't know that off the top of my head, but now I do.
Very interesting.